Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today to talk about supporting some of our youngest learners in our education system. I'm really excited and pleased to be joined by Dr. Georgiou, who's joining us virtually from the University of Alberta, and also excited to have Erica DeGuyer of Aurora Academic Charter School here to talk with all of you about what we're doing to help support our earliest learners. In their early years, as we know, children develop foundational skills that will be critical to their ultimate and lifelong success. Learning to read, write, and count are some of the most important skills our young learners need to develop. The earlier that they can grasp these concepts, the better they will do in the future. Our Conservative government firmly believes in giving every student the strongest possible start, and that begins with literacy and numeracy. As a father of young children myself, this is also a personal priority for me. Research on learning shows that early screening and frequent assessment is key to monitoring a child's progress and identifying intervention opportunities. You'll hear more about that in a few moments from Dr. Georgiou. To ensure our children stay on track, Alberta's government is implementing mandatory literacy and numeracy screening for all children in kindergarten to grade 3. I'm here today to provide an update on our screening progress and talk a little bit more about next steps. As you may know, the process began in September of this year for students in grades 1 to 3. Beginning in September, all students in grades 1 to 3 were screened to help give educators and parents a starting baseline. These students will be screened again in January, and those who have been identified as requiring intervention will be screened a third time before the end of the school year to measure the impact of intervention support and help provide valuable information for the next year. As we look forward to 2025, we are ready to take the next steps in the rollout of our literacy and numeracy screening framework. That next step will begin next month in January of 2025, and it will mark the first time that kindergarten students in Alberta will be screened for literacy and numeracy skills. The results from these short, simple screeners will provide teachers, parents, and Alberta Education with essential information on how well students are developing foundational skills. Alberta Education knows that school boards need help to address student learning gaps. That's why, since 2021, the government has provided $85 million in learning disruption funding. School boards have used these funds to increase student success in their early years and beyond. I'm pleased to announce as well that we will continue to ensure school boards have the resources that they need to support learners who are identified as needing additional support. And we will be investing $10 million in the 24-25 school year through the new literacy and numeracy support funding. School boards can use these funds to help children in kindergarten to grade 3. Funding allocations for grades 1 to 3 have been communicated to our school boards, and funds will be distributed next week. School boards can use these funds to hire additional staff and help support students who are identified as requiring additional intervention. The beginning of a child's educational journey is a critical time. The literacy and numeracy skills our children learn prepares them for the years to come. Through Alberta's literacy and numeracy screening and this additional funding, I'm confident that our young students will stay on track. This consistent approach across the province is supporting Alberta Education and our hardworking education staff in maintaining a transparent, accountable, and responsive system. Looking to the future, new screenings for grades 4 and 5 will also become mandatory in the fall of 2026. simply to help identify students who may still require support. More details of a screening in grades 4 to 5 will be available at a future time. For now, I encourage Albertans who would like to learn more about our enhanced framework to visit alberta.ca, where you can find a detailed overview of the types of screeners school boards are using to monitor progress. And to Alberta teachers, I also encourage you to visit New Learn Alberta for resources that support the administration of the screening assessments, including videos, frequently asked questions, and student intervention activity guides. Thank you so much for joining me again today, and I'm happy to turn things over now to Dr. George Giorgio of the University of Alberta to talk more about why this work is so important. Thank you.
Nikolaidis, dear teachers and parents. Today's announcement marks an important milestone in the history of Alberta's education, and what a privilege it has been to be part of this journey. We are the first province to mandate early screening and intervention in Canada. We did this because we know that the earlier we identify children with reading or mathematics difficulties, the better chances we have to help these children. And we created screeners in both English and French to be used by English, French immersion, and Francophone schools. It is through the overwhelming commitment of educators in this province that since 2021, approximately 80,000 children have been identified as being at risk, and they have received on-time intervention. Today, we celebrate that about 70,000 children overcame their early reading and mathematics difficulties. This mandatory screening policy ensures that children in Alberta will continue to receive these supports. But our work is not done. Let us continue to increase professional development for our teachers, partnering with post-secondary institutions and international researchers. They have all come together, Minister Nikolaidis, to support this endeavor because they believe in the great work that Alberta Education is doing and the great work that our teachers are doing for the benefit of our students. In closing, Minister Nikolaidis, I would like to applaud and thank you for the vision, the commitment, and the persistence in bringing forward this policy. Second, I would like to thank my colleagues, both in Alberta and internationally, who offered their assessments to Alberta Education for the benefit of our students. And finally, I would like to thank the many school divisions and teachers in this province who have supported Alberta Education in piloting these measures and for providing quality intervention for our students. Let us remember that what we do today is for the future of our students. Thank you.
Dr. Giorgio, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you immensely for your support and the work and research that you've done in helping to facilitate the development of these screeners and provide robust research-backed practice to help support Alberta learners. I'm very pleased to be able to turn things over now to Erica de Guyer. Hopefully I pronounced the last name correctly. I know what it's like to have your last name mispronounced. Of Aurora Academic Charter Academy to provide her insights as well. Erica, please.
Thank you, Minister and Dr. Giorgio. My name is Erica de Guyer, and I am a grade 5 teacher and learning support specialist at Aurora Academic Charter School here in Edmonton. Throughout my career in education, I have had the privilege of welcoming many bright young minds into my classroom, each ready and eager to continue their learning journey. Every student brings their own unique blend of strengths and challenges, making our classrooms rich yet diverse. As educators, we are entrusted with the responsibility of nurturing these strengths while providing targeted support for their challenges. Yet some of the most significant learning challenges aren't immediately apparent in our classroom setting. Research has shown that without comprehensive literacy and numeracy screening in the early years, students may face persistent difficulties with foundational skills throughout their academic years. At Aurora, we've observed that while supportive interventions benefit students at all levels, they prove most impactful during the early formative years. In fact, approximately 92% of our supports or interventions are dedicated to students in kindergarten through grade 3. There's evidence that this proactive approach reduces the needs for supports in their later years. The implementation of systematic screening, identification, and intervention protocols will help provide educators an opportunity to identify these challenges early and provide the targeted support and instruction when it matters the most. This investment into early screening and support will help ensure every student in Alberta has the opportunity to build strong foundational skills and receive the support that they truly deserve. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to Kevin Lee to moderate the Q&A.
Great. Thank you all for coming. That concludes the formal portion of today's announcement. We're now going to take questions from the media, starting with those who are here in the room, and then we'll head to the phone. If you have a question, please state your name, outlet, who the question is directed to, either Minister Nicolaides or Dr. Giorgio, and please keep it to one question, one follow-up. We'll start with Janet.
I'm afraid I need to ask you about Bill 27. Janet French from the CBC. So EGAL says that they're going to be launching legal action, quote, very soon, because the law violates human rights in their mind. So how confident are you that this bill is going to stand up in court, and why?
Sure. Well, regrettably, I don't want to speculate on any, upcoming legal challenge or the constitutionality. We'll have to want to make sure that process plays out independently as it should in the court environment. So I don't want to speculate on any future or potential legal challenges.
Right. When will you make a decision about using the notwithstanding clause?
Sure. Well, again, I think if that's something to be explored, I'm sure Cabinet would discuss and explore that and provide an update if that is indeed the case. But well, again, I want to see where things are at, and I want to try and make sure that I have all the information if we get to that kind of a spot and state, and have the information and then make an informed decision. So again, I'm not too keen on speculating on potentials, but if we get there and make a decision, then happy to provide more information at that point.
All right, Sean, go ahead.
Hi, Sean with City News. I'm just looking at a tweet here from Rachel Notley. She says, yesterday was a low point in her experience in the legislature in 17 years. She says that the bills that were voted on breach fundamental human rights. How do you feel about that, about seeing that sort of thing? And is this a case of your government is going to be able to convince people that this is the right thing? Or are we going to be at a point where people just disagree and that's okay?
Sure. Well, as it relates to Bill 27, which, passed third reading, of course, and which I had brought forward, I think there's some essential elements, of course, contained within that bill. Parents need to be informed and involved in the education and upbringing of their children, of course, because parents are always the primary drivers of their kids' education, so they need to be informed. What I heard, and during debate last night, I challenged the opposition to provide evidence and facts and details and information to support their claims. They weren't able to do that. All they've been able to do, and all they continue to do, is fearmonger, project misinformation, and offer conjecture. And I offered supporting evidence. The NDP has been making the claim through this debate that if we move to an opt-in, that parents will just be too busy and won't be able to find the forms and return them. Nothing could be further from the truth. Parents are well invested in their kids' education, and and try their very best to stay on top of things. And if we look objectively at states or jurisdictions, there's four jurisdictions in the United States that have an opt-in. I think in Nevada, with information that I found from the state legislature, over 95% of parents opt in. So the NDP, of course, continues with fear and conjecture that moving to an opt-in is going to result in a significant more amount of people and children not receiving sex education. There's no evidence to suggest or support that. In fact, the opposite is true. And we have a very robust sex education curriculum. We teach about STIs in elementary. We teach about safe sex. We teach all of these components. And I'm confident that our robust sex education curriculum will give students the right information that they need. And at the same time, help ensure that parents are involved and help ensure that they have the final decision over their kids' education.
Can you explain the amendment made there and why, if something has a religious tone to it, why should it be exempt from the rules? Because your government has been criticized on that. Can you explain why that needed to be done?
Sure. Well, for many of our faith-based providers, questions around human sexuality and gender are intertwined with their teachings of faith. So many of our faith partners consulted with us after the tabling of the bill and were concerned that there could be some issue there, because a lot of those subjects are interconnected and in some of our faith-based schools are presented through the same lens. So our intent has always been to ensure that material that is dealing explicitly with human sexuality and gender identity is viewed by the government in advance. However, if there's material that is dealing primarily with religion and religious instruction, but also touches on those topics, that's not the intent of the bill, so that clarification supports that.
Great. We're going to head over to the phones. Operator, can you please put through the first caller?
Our next question is from Dan Singleton from Great West Media. Please go ahead.
About the announcement this morning for the minister. I wonder if you could give us a bit of details on the screening for literacy and numeracy kindergarten students at that level.
Sure. I can perhaps invite Dr. Georgiou as well to provide a little bit more information, but I can give you a high-level overview. So as I mentioned before, this will be the first time that we will be screening students in kindergarten using these literacy and numeracy screeners. We're also one of the first provinces to do so as well. That'll begin in January. And in developing the framework, there was conversation about whether we do the screening in September or, when is the best time to do it. And we recognize, of course, that kindergarten not being mandatory means that many students might be coming into the school system for the very first time in September, may not have had any kind of prior learning or academic experience. So we believed it was important to make sure that there is that window of time for educators to be able to work with students and build a foundation and then institute the screening in January. So the screening will occur in January for all students in kindergarten. We'll give educators and our school boards valuable information about their literacy and numeracy abilities, and of course that information is incredibly valuable to help inform and spot students that may require additional intervention or supports. I'm not sure, Dr. Georgiou, if there was anything that you wanted to add to that question.
That the students will be assessed on a measure of phonological awareness, a measure of letter knowledge, and a measure of rapid automatized naming. These are quick screening tools, and they can accurately identify about 95% of the students who will later on develop reading difficulties. So assuming we can have such a success rate in identifying these children, it is our responsibility to catch them early before they fall. The earlier we provide the intervention to these students, the better chances we have to help them. So this is the intention. They're quick screeners, they don't take much time, and they provide very valuable information.
A follow-up?
No, that's fine, thank you.
All right, operator, can you please put through the next caller?
Your next question is from Meredith Kerr from Lakeland This Week. Please go ahead.
Hi, this question is for the minister. So with getting the support for students who are identified through this, sorry, there's a lot of echo happening. With getting the support for students who are in need of it, who get identified through this early screening process, I guess kind of the question that I have is this going to necessarily catch all of the students who are going to need that further support? Because my understanding is that one of the things that really contributes to success in school is whether there are learning disabilities like ADHD, autism, that kind of stuff at play. Are these screeners things that are actually going to be able to pick up on kids who need support for those kind of learning challenges, or is it just going to be picking up the kids who maybe have the visual issue where they need to go see a doctor and get some glasses?
Sure. I'll let Dr. Georgiou provide some more commentary on that piece. The screeners assess a student's literacy and numeracy capabilities, and of course the screeners are designed to be age appropriate, and they help identify and flag whether a student is kind of at or below where they should be with respect to their literacy and numeracy abilities. So if that is identified, obviously that can open up the door to additional questions, to your point. Is there another issue that's attributing to that student's a lack of literacy and numeracy strength? Do we need a further investigation? So I think it helps to kind of raise a flag. And it doesn't, the screeners, of course, are not structured to diagnose ADHD or other learning disabilities, but I think they can raise a level of awareness. And of course, that can be investigated further by parents with the support of teachers and other staff. Dr. Georgiou, did you want to provide any comment?
Yes, the screeners can correctly identify 95% of the students who will develop reading and numeracy difficulties. Obviously, they are not measures that can tell us if a child can have vision problems or hearing difficulties, but the whole idea is to catch the kids that will be experiencing difficulties in these most important early school fields like reading or mathematics. And the set of tasks that we have put forward in both English and French, they allow us to basically identify every single child that will be developing these early reading or mathematics difficulties. If we identify them early, we can act quickly and, as the minister said, provide the right intervention so that when they go to later grades, they overcome their early reading struggles. And we do have the data from Alberta in the last 3 years or so when the schools have been implementing these practices, that they have reduced the number of struggling students in their school division, and they have improved the overall performance of the students, including seeing a reduced number of behavioral difficulties in their classes. So we are very confident that this policy will be creating a safety net where all the kids who need early intervention will be accurately identified and be provided with the right type of instruction.
And a follow-up?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right, operator, can you please put through the next caller?
There are no further questions at this time.
All right, that concludes today's announcement. Or we'll go to Janet.
I just want to go back to follow up on the previous woman's question, to get a psychoeducational assessment in a school right now takes forever. To the point where there was a private member's bill about this, right? So even if their deficits are identified and a learning disability is suspected, what tangible steps are you taking to make sure that children can get access to those tests and not have to go pay thousands of dollars privately in order to get timely access?
Yeah, a very important question because, to your point, maybe the screeners identify that a student will develop reading difficulties, as Dr. Giorgio has mentioned, and then we, parents and teachers believe that maybe there's more to play there and require a more comprehensive psychoeducational assessment. So one of the things that we're doing, of course, is to work with our school boards and see how we can best support them. That's the best role that we can play as government. And we are providing, as I mentioned earlier, $10 million in the 24-25 year to help support school boards through the Early Literacy and Numeracy Grant so that they can use those funds to help support those students that are identified as needing some additional supports. We also have as well, which we created in last year in 2023, the Classroom Complexity Grant. About $44 million is being dispersed to our school boards this year alone. That funding, again, is provided to school boards for them. There's a lot of flexibility there. They can use that money to hire speech-language pathologists, educational assistants, psychologists, or other professionals to help to conduct those assessments and provide that additional support if necessary. So always happy to talk more with our school boards to see what more there is that we can do to support them. I think an important thing that we can do is give them the resources and the flexibility that they need, and so we are working to do that.
Just to follow up on Sean's question about the amendment to Bill 27. I mean, your government is very emphatic about choice in education, and parents should be able to choose what educational philosophy aligns with their beliefs. But, I mean, to say that families who choose a religious school, like that their beliefs are held more deeply than families who make some other choice, why are you creating a double standard to say, oh, I'm not going to police the resources or the outside presenters who go into the religious schools, but anybody going to any other type of school, they've got to go through my office? Sure. Well, there will still be the same rules regarding any external party, third party coming in. Any external third party that comes into a school will still have to go through the same measures. But our intent with the bill has always been clear. Our intent has been to ensure that material that is being used primarily for instruction related to human sexuality, gender identity, or sexual orientation is reviewed by the ministry in advance to ensure that it is appropriate for the audience and appropriate for the kids. And again, the feedback that we received is that oftentimes there may be material from some of our religious partners that is of nature. The intent of the material is to be religious instruction, but it touches on aspects of human sexuality or gender identity. And so our intent is not to have to review that material, just like we are not intending to review literature material that's used in English class that maybe touches on human sexuality or has incidental or indirect references. That's never been our intent. Again, our focus is to ensure that if a third-party presenter intends to come into a school and deliver a presentation or provide material to children that deals primarily and explicitly with gender identity or human sexuality, that we want to know and make sure that we're clear about who that entity is and what information they're going to be providing to kids.
All right, that concludes today's press conference. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much.